Hi guys, welcome to my channel and welcome back to another graphite drawing tutorial video. I recently posted a video about some tools you can add to your graphite collection, so definitely check that one out if you haven't already. Today's video is going to be about 4 techniques to master and incorporate into your graphite drawing to get a more realistic look. So I sort of put these 4 things together because graphite is a medium I've worked with for many years now, but recently I haven't worked in graphite very much because I've been trying to master a bunch of different mediums, and when I do black and white drawings I usually end up using charcoal and not graphite. But I decided that I wanted to go back to graphite and work a little bit more in graphite this year in 2020. And the first graphite portrait I'm going to be doing this year is this Martin Luther King Jr. portrait. So the tips I'm talking about today you can actually use for graphite drawings that are not portraits as well. So if your subject is like a still life or an animal or anything like that, these will help you for that too. Specifically, they are going to work great for portraits if you are interested in drawing portraits. So let's talk about realistic graphite drawing. I'm going to go ahead and go straight into the first technique that I would recommend. Once I actually finish creating my outline, I like to go in with a couple lighter grade graphite pencils and just sort of map out where some of the shadows are going to go. I just kind of use the side of my pencil and it looks a little bit messy, like some areas look like hatching or even just like little circles, and that's okay because graphite is very easy to manipulate and blend later on. So I also am using a couple darker grade pencils around the nose because in the reference photo I'm using, that's a very dark area. I want to indicate where the very dark shadows are going to be, but the rest of the face has very like mid-tone or lighter toned areas, so I'm just mapping those out. And I think this is very important to do because it kind of serves as like a reference point for you later as you continue working. If you just start in one little area and you're working in that area and you try to move on after finishing one whole area to the next area, sometimes you're a little bit overwhelmed. I kind of just like to tackle the whole mapping out shadows part first in the face area just to get a visual guide of where everything is going to go. My drawing is a little bit complicated because his hands are included, so I have to tackle the hands, but I'm just going in and doing the same thing and mapping out where the shadows will go just to show that you can pretty much use this technique for anything that you're drawing. And it's actually kind of relaxing because you're not having to do any harsh shadows or building up an area too much. You're just going and trying to get in the basics done, and it just helps. It's kind of like outlining when you're writing a paper or something like that. You create an outline and it really helps you later on. You're not as overwhelmed, and that's how I feel about doing this. And also with graphite, I love how you're just worrying about value and not color, so you can really just focus on value and you don't have to be stressed about building up a bunch of different colors. The second technique is a technique that works better for areas that are very shadowed and dark all around. So there are some areas in my reference photo that I notice are very dark, and I don't really want to start with a lighter grade pencil and build up because it seems kind of pointless in these particular areas. I don't want to waste time doing that, so I'm just going to go in with my darker grade pencil and use a medium to light hand still and just fill in where those shadows are going to go. I like to use a Kimberly 9XXB pencil, which I talked about in my graphite tools / supplies video that I uploaded earlier this week. But you can also use an 8B graphite pencil as your darkest pencil, or you can even incorporate a charcoal pencil into your graphite set to get your very dark tones if you're somebody who really wants to get more contrast and you don't like the contrast that graphite alone provides. So that's what I'm doing, is just going in and darkening some areas like the mustache and some areas around the lips and nose, and especially the eyes that I know are going to be super dark. So just mapping those areas in, and these areas in particular might not even need a lot of blending because they are already so dark. Like there's an area between the face and the hands that is so dark that I think it's going to be pretty much almost like as close as I can get to black with graphite / this Kimberly 9XXB pencil. And then I'm going in for the hair and just darkening that up a little bit as well. I'm probably going to have to go in and do another layer on this. The third technique I'm going to talk about is actually more of a tip than it is a technique, and that is just to be very careful around the edges of your drawing when you are doing realistic drawings or realistic portraits. So basically this is important for any medium, but with graphite there are some hard grade graphite pencils that tend to create harsh lines that are hard to get out of the paper, and you You want to avoid that at all costs because harsh lines are not realistic and outlines are not realistic, but you have to start your work with an outline. That's why it's important to be careful when you're shading that you can't really see your outline at all. So in order to get rid of your outline, you want to use something like a kneaded eraser to pick up some of the graphite and pick up just enough that you can still see where you're coloring, or in this case where you're shading with your graphite pencil later. Around edges, I like to be extremely careful. I try not to use like too much of the tip of the pencil, and I might shade in circular motions or just very lightly. I don't want to create anything like a line. Don't shade in too much of a linear motion because you might end up with something that looks like a line or an outline around a shape or form in your drawing, and that's definitely what you want to avoid. Also, keep in mind around the features on the face, if you're doing a portrait as well, you don't want to create outlines there either. I'm moving into the fourth technique, so the fourth and final technique now, and that is going to be about blending, because I can't really make a graphite video without talking about blending. That's very important in graphite work. Luckily, graphite is a very easy medium to blend, and you can blend it with pretty much anything. So I'm going to talk about 3 different ways you can blend and what sort of the best method is for each particular area you're working in. When you are working with a larger area, it's easy to go in and blend with something like a tissue, because a tissue is a very fast way to blend and you won't create a lot of unevenness. For example, the skin, I'm going to go in and use the tissue for the larger areas of skin to just quickly and easily and smoothly blend. If you use something like a blending stump, you might have a little bit of trouble getting the evenness and the smoothness of skin. Now, some areas are too small for a tissue. You don't want to like go in and smudge all the graphite all over the place and lose detail. So for those areas, I'd recommend using a Q-tip. So for example, in this drawing, I'm using a Q-tip to blend the graphite on the lips because I still want to get a smooth effect, because lips are smooth and you don't want any sort of harshness. So a Q-tip will still give you that smooth effect without ruining all the details that you've created. And Q-tips are really common household items, so they're easy to come by, and it's not something that you would have to go out and buy most of the time. You probably already have some. So I like to use Q-tips for smaller areas with a little bit more detail. You can also see I'm using a Q-tip for the ear. So the ear was one of those areas I talked about earlier that was just very dark in my reference photo, so I went in with a darker value pencil already. There are some areas that are still too small to blend with a Q-tip, like around the eyes. So I like to use a Tortillion, and I just have random Tortillions because they have come with graphite sets I've purchased over the years. I don't always end up using them. Tortillions are like blending stumps but much smaller, and you can get really small details blended with them. So I use them around the eyes in particular in a portrait. What I like about these is you can smooth out things like creases or wrinkles very well so that they don't look like just lines and they look a little bit more natural. You can also use it in the waterline on the eye. So this is a great tool, especially for little like meticulous things and little details like that. Once you get your first layer blended out, you're still gonna have to go in, add more value, and then blend that out as well, and continue adding more and blending until you're satisfied with your drawing. And that's sort of the graphite drawing process. I hope that this video was helpful for you. I'm actually not going to be finished with this drawing in the video, but I will post it on my Instagram as soon as I'm finished with it. So I'll leave my Instagram here in case you're not following me on there yet, but I will be finished with it fairly soon. I will list my materials in the description if anybody is interested in the materials that I'm using. I just hope that you enjoyed this video or that you learned something from it, and let me know what you think of this drawing as well, this Martin Luther King Jr. drawing. Actually doing this for this month is February, Black History Month, and also I just really have been meaning to draw Martin Luther King Jr. for a long time now, and I'm finally getting to it now, which I think is great. Really happy to be working in graphite again. And let me know in the comments what you thought. So I will hopefully see you in the next video, and thank you guys so much for watching. Bye!